KPBS On Demand is supported by UC San Diego's Art Power, presenting Richie Forever, an ode to an American dreamer, reimagines the music and legacy of Richie Valens on September 2nd at the Epstein Family Amphitheater. Visit artpower.ucsd.edu.
I'm Lawrence K. Jackson, host and producer of San Diego News Now, KPBS's daily news podcast. Today, we're featuring two KPBS investigative podcasts that explore questions of justice, accountability, and the pursuit of truth. One of Their Own is an investigative series that examines allegations of misconduct within trusted institutions and the system designed to hold them accountable. Meanwhile, the Free Jane podcast revisits the controversial conviction and eventual release of Jane Dorotic. This is Best of KPBS Podcasts.
KPBS On Demand is supported by UC San Diego's Art Power, presenting Richie Forever, an ode to an American dreamer, reimagines the music and legacy of Richie Valens on September 2nd at the Epstein Family Amphitheater. Visit artpower.ucsd.edu.
I'm Lawrence K. Jackson, and this is Best of KPBS Podcast. One of Their Own is an award-winning investigative podcast that explores what happens when allegations of wrongdoing emerge within institutions built on trust, authority, and public service. Through extensive reporting, interviews, and documentary storytelling, the series examines the controversy surrounding the death of San Diego police officer Sierra Estrada. What happens when the institution tasked with investigation is faced with the death of one of their own? Today, we'll hear an extended conversation with the team behind the podcast, followed by the first episode from the series. Katie Eisen is the host and producer of One of Their Own. She joins me now, along with David Washburn, KPBS's Investigations and Digital Fellowship Editor. Welcome to you both.
Good to be here, Lawrence.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for you both making time. Katie, we'll start with you. Take us to the beginning. How did you first even learn about this controversy surrounding the death of SDPD officer Sierra Estrada?
Her mother reached out to me. She'd seen reporting I'd done on allegations of domestic abuse by a San Diego police officer against the female officer he married. And she said that her own daughter's story had never been told. Sierra's death wasn't that I could find covered by media when it happened. That was more than 8 years ago. So it wasn't a public controversy so much as her family carrying the weight of all these unanswered questions and frustrations on their own. And after looking through the case files, I had more questions than answers myself, and I knew that I had to keep digging.
Absolutely, and you did it so thoroughly. We're going to learn, as well as our listeners, a lot about the behind the scenes and some of those details that maybe took a full investigation to unveil. This next question is for both of you. We'll start with you first, David. What made you want to even explore this in a podcast format? I mean, really, what does the format of podcasts allow for you to accomplish that other modes of reporting maybe don't, like a one-day spot or feature? Talk to me about the idea of a long-form podcast to tell this story, Washburn.
Well, what really sealed it for me was the level of access that the family granted Katie. They really let her into their lives, and narrative podcasts are among the best ways to let people tell their stories in their own words. Also, from a pure storytelling standpoint, One of Their Own had a narrative arc that was tailor-made for a podcast series. And I must also say that whenever possible as an editor, you want to match the format with the reporter's strengths. And Katie is a master when it comes to long-form audio storytelling.
Absolutely, Katie. Each episode, really feels like we want to get to the next one. Do you have any follow-up to David's comment on why you chose the format of long-form podcasting?
Yeah, I just love the intimacy of audio. I think people's voices have so much in them that's lost when you just put the words to paper. And in this case, the emotion in the voices when people paused or things fell silent, when everyone started talking over each other, their sighs. It's like this whole layer to the story. And podcasting also just gives us so much more time than a radio series would. You get to hold people's attention and let the story breathe and develop in ways that you just can't in 5-minute chunks on radio. And it's just a lot more accessible, I think, for how people engage with stories today.
Without a doubt, Katie. Were there any unique difficulties or roadblocks that you ran into when telling, researching, and fact checking this story?
Oh boy, yes. This is a story where, one of the main people involved wouldn't speak with me. And unfortunately, the other person is dead. And so to tell their story responsibly without their voices took a lot of care and work. And I had to rely not just on people around them, but on old electronic devices and records, notes Sierra wrote herself, old text messages. It also took a very long time to finally convince a former police officer to go on record with me and to get the department to answer questions about this case. This isn't a topic that's easy or entirely safe to talk about. I also faced a lot of redactions in the records that I did have for the case and was denied some records that I still believe that we have a right to. And so ultimately, we just had to tell the most complete story we could under a lot of constraints.
Absolutely. I'm sure there were. And anything to add to that? Any roadblocks from the editor's standpoint? I know there were some legal roadblocks, as there usually are in stories like this, Washburn.
Yes, I mean we had to get the story, what we call lawyered, and there's always that push and pull with the attorney when it comes to that, because his job is to protect us from legal liability. Our job is to tell the best story possible, and it's a compromise. And I also want to say that even though Katie was limited in the record, she did an amazing job of getting the records she did get for the story. I mean, to call her reporting dogged is an understatement. And that being said, there were a lot of different ways that the police stonewalled us, and unnecessarily so. And then, as Katie said, there's the challenge of telling someone's story without the benefit of interviewing them. It's known in the business as a write-around. And it requires a tremendous amount of work interviewing people close to the main character and then, poring over just mountains of documents.
Absolutely, absolutely. Katie, I'm going to send this next question to you. One of Their Own really begins with the mother's voice. When I listen to the episodes, I can't get her voice really out of my head. She's a driving factor to this story and storytelling, I would say. Talk to me about what it was like to have access to that degree and from that perspective there with the family who lost really their child.
Yeah, it was really moving. It meant a lot to me to have their trust to tell this story and to enter into this space of really like enormous grief and trauma that can be such a close, tight space that they welcomed me into. And, I still had to do sometimes uncomfortable parts of my job. I had to fact check what they're saying, and I still had to press them when things didn't align. I think reporters sometimes can be expected to function kind of like robots. You're supposed to maintain a certain distance and objectivity, but at the same time, situations like this require you to really push your humanity too, and to sit with a father, a mother, a sister while they cry, and to hold with them the significance of what they lost. And so I'm still in touch with the family, and I'm sure this is one of those stories that will stick with me for life.
I'm sure it will. I have no doubt it will. When you're doing that research, over months, over weeks, let's talk about discoveries that maybe surprised you. You talk about from the family side needing to fact check some of what they're saying. Obviously, from the police side, you're doing the same. But let's talk about discoveries made. Were there any that surprised you during this investigation?
Yeah, I think you get a certain idea from watching TV shows like CSI about how police investigations are supposed to unfold. And I think I knew that wasn't fully reality, but I think the extent in this case of what at least appeared to be a lack of digging, a lack of diligence really surprised me. And I uncovered things in the reporting process that were completely missing from the case files and that the family themselves didn't know about the night their daughter died. And so that process really surprised me.
Was there anything that you hope overall that listeners take away from this series?
I really hope that listeners who might see themselves in Sierra or even see their own relationship reflected in the story will feel less alone. I hope that they seek out people that they can talk to about it. I think there's a whole category of harm in relationships that we just don't talk about it as much because it's not so black and white. And I think it's a conversation we really need to start having.
Absolutely, absolutely. Same question for you, Washburn. Anything you hope that listeners take away from this series?
I second everything Katie said. Also, at its heart, this is an accountability story. Sierra's family suffered what for all of us is our worst nightmare. And making things even worse for the family is a lack of closure. And if the San Diego police had been more forthcoming with the records in the case, they could have perhaps had more closure. And the police still could release more records to the family. There is nothing stopping them but their own policies.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've been speaking with Katie Hyson, the host and producer of One of Their Own, as well as David Washburn, our investigations and digital fellowship editor. Thank you to you both for this strong piece of journalism. Stories like this happen often, and you help to uncover a lot of details that weren't at the forefront. So I encourage everyone here to listen to One of Their Own. Thank you both for your time.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Thanks.
In the first episode of One of Their Own, we learn who SDPD officer Sierra Estrada was.
This podcast contains discussion of suicide and domestic abuse. We discuss opinions expressed by others. We at KPBS don't endorse those opinions. No one has been charged with a crime relating to Sierra Estrada's death. And we don't intend to imply that anyone should be charged or engaged in wrongdoing.
Get off of me! Trevor! Stop!
This is San Diego police officer Sierra Estrada, playing with her beagle, Trevor. She took this video in December 2017, her last month alive. She was 25 years old. On New Year's Eve, she went to her older sister's house. They put waves in her long hair, painted her lips red to match her floor-length, sparkling dress, hung fake diamonds in her ears. Her parents stopped by. She said she'd see them the next weekend. She headed to a party at the Hilton Hotel overlooking the bay. Photos taken around 10 p.m. show her smiling, radiant. The next day, her fellow officers found her in that dress on her bathroom floor with a bullet hole between her eyes. Her gun was in her lap. A fired bullet casing was still lodged inside. Soot marked a finger on each hand. San Diego police investigated her death themselves. Almost immediately, they called it a suicide. I'm Katie Hyson. I report on racial justice and social equity for KPBS News in San Diego. And this is One of Their Own. It doesn't appear local news outlets ever reported her death, but Sierra grabbed the world's attention when she was alive. A video of her went viral in 2016. 8.5 million views on YouTube alone. The video is just Sierra doing her job.
Somebody inside said you're out here panhandling.
I am. but I am not aggressively panhandling, so I don't think I'm breaking any laws.
You're not.
It's titled Finally, a Nice Cop.
What's your name?
Set.
Seth?
Mm-hmm.
It was posted by a man the nearby business called to complain about.
You have every right to be here.
Thank you.
I mean, just make sure you're not obstructing the sidewalk.
Of course.
You know, some people are just a little intimidated.
Of course.
I'm just gonna take some of your info down,
Sure.
okay? It's not a ticket.
No problem. You need me to get my ID out for you?
Perfect, yeah, if you have that.
He was struck by the way she treated him.
The female cops are always much nicer, and I've been taping asshole cops for the past week, and you're the first person who was nice.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we can't all, police the same way. It's all discretion. It's all, for me, talking to people is a big thing, and the way you talk to people is a big thing, so...
Some cops don't realize if you...
This simple video of Sierra received more attention than her sudden and complicated death. I'm telling you this story today because 7 years later, I got an email from Sierra's mom. She reached out because she saw a story I wrote about a lawsuit. The lawsuit alleged domestic violence by a male San Diego police officer against the female officer he married. And it described a department culture that both enabled it and covered it up. In 5 years of reporting on this beat in San Diego and elsewhere, these kinds of complaints have become familiar to me. Police departments are expected to enforce the laws that keep our society functioning, and they're given a lot of power to do that. But they're also real, flawed workplaces with conflicts and culture issues. And sometimes those flaws collide with that power, especially when they investigate one of their own. In this podcast, I explore Sierra's story and SDPD's investigation of her death. How did they reach their conclusions? Did they dig deep enough? Would they have handled it differently if the people involved weren't their coworkers? These questions have haunted Sierra's mother. She says Sierra's story, the real story, was never told. Her family wasn't up for talking to reporters in the shock that followed. But now, they're ready. So on a clear April day, I make the hour drive north to Murrieta to meet them. When I arrive, Sierra's father waves me into the driveway.
Larry. I'm Katie. Nice to meet you.
Larry is retired military. It shows in his posture.
Katie, you made it! Hi. Nice to meet you.
Sierra's mother, Julie, is about half Larry's height and twice as loud. Their house is covered in Easter decorations.
Yeah, the holidays were so special to her. It was everything,
Her, meaning Sierra, she's there, too. Among all the eggs and rabbits and symbols of new life are reminders of her death. Larger than life-size portraits of her hang above our heads.
You look so much like her.
Oh, thank
both
you.
look
Thank you. You know what, my daughter...
Sierra and her mother share the same brown hair, big eyes, and wide cheekbones. One portrait of Sierra hangs in a circle with her 3 siblings, an older brother and sister, and a younger sister.
My oldest daughter and my youngest daughter are water and oil. Sierra was the mediator and all the family. She could always make anybody see the other side.
Cheyenne, the youngest, is here too. She's 31 now, older than her older sister would ever be.
People that knew Sierra, they say me and her talk alike, laugh similar, or look alike.
Yeah, every time she laughs, I'm like, oh my God, Sierra.
Cheyenne and Sierra grew up together, took baths together as kids. They shared a bedroom, years of falling asleep to nighttime chit-chat and back scratches. Sierra taught Cheyenne how to drive on the freeway, a secret from their mom.
Yeah, we're the same zodiac sign too, so that made it harder.
What zodiac sign?
Oh, we're both Aquarius. We were definitely closer, though, than me and my older sister, so our relationship was really hard to lose her.
Yeah.
If I ever struggled in school, she'd be the first one to help me with work or anything that I had trouble with going on. Sierra was the number one person who was there for me to help during any type of situation that I was going through. Yeah, so we were really tight.
What was you said you were both Aquarius, so
yeah.
What's the vibe? What's the personality?
We're not really like the life of the party people. Like if we ever went to a function, we're usually the quiet, the reserved, watching from afar. But we seem to make an impact on the people that we do interact with. And she was the kind of like a girl's girl. She'd be the person you'd call if you needed a maid of honor. She was that like to anyone and everyone she met. She would literally give you the shirt off her back to total strangers. So I don't think there was anything that she kept private. Like the way she was with her family was the same way she was out in the public. Very just like the girl you would want by your side through anything.
Like any sisters, they fought.
Like what kinds of things would you get into it over?
You know, it's so sad with memories, they start to fade, but I don't know, like movies. So she used to love to stay up late and pull like all-nighters. So she just like to stay up the whole entire night, and if I was like, I can't do it anymore, I have to go to sleep, she'd be like, oh my God, come on, don't leave me hanging.
Memories fade, but reminders cover the home. Sierra's locker door from the precinct's changing room hangs in the garage. It's covered in messages from her fellow officers.
Truly a beautiful spirit. We'll miss trying to save the world with you, but we'll always cherish our friendship. Forever your partner.
In one corner of the garage, child-sized handprints are pressed into the cement floor. Sierra's. It's a small thing that makes the house feel impossible to sell. Her parents still have her wallet, with cash inside they can't bring themselves to spend, and an expired coupon. Sierra was thrifty.
So like a mason jar glass, that's going to be used for Q-tips. Or a candle glass that's clear. Like I can use this to hold hair ties and nail polishes.
So she saved all her T-shirts or jerseys, even ones when she was like in fifth grade softball or something.
Right.
All her clothes went from her apartment basically into a tote, and then when you open the tote out, you basically smell her.
A quilt made of her T-shirts covers an entire wall in a room downstairs. It's a patchwork of an active, varied life.
She wanted to try choir. She wanted to go out to be a cheerleader, but she wanted to try softball, but she wanted to try soccer. So she wanted to be in the military. She went to the Coast Guard Academy, prep school.
She went to Hell Week at the Coast Guard Academy in Connecticut.
Did ROTC in high school, was in a leadership position there.
The second command in high school.
When she went to San Diego State in her freshman year, she told us, she's, Mom, Dad, hey, there's this opportunity to be on the rowing team. I said, rowing? The only boat you ever been is, on the beach? I mean, she never, rowing, that's a pretty tough sport.
Pretty hard.
Her mom shows me a photo of Sierra's hands after a crew race. They're covered in open wounds and blisters. She demanded a lot of herself. I find more evidence of this in her high school scrapbook.
MTV. What is this first line? I was not one to accomplish much in elementary school.
I don't know what that would mean.
Yeah, why even like
Would you write
really
that?
hard on herself.
Yeah.
The scrapbook is a time capsule of the aughts. Sierra was just months younger than me. So these photos I've never seen are familiar, angled down onto side bangs and skinny jeans and raccoon eyeliner. The pages are filled with Twilight and Chris Brown, notes between friends, and inside jokes.
This is addressed to Miss Shakira Estrada, living at 32 My Hips Don't Lie Court.
Oh my God. What? Shakira Estrada. After you named Shakira.
That's hysterical.
Shakira. Oh my God.
Her head seemed tight on her shoulders for someone so young. Her family says she wasn't a drinker in college. She took care of the girls who were, cleaned up their throw up, and made sure they got home safe. According to her family, her biggest vice might have been Monster energy drinks.
But she was obsessed with those. Like, I'd buy her cases of Monsters.
Right.
You know?
She needed those. Those were like a necessity.
I'd fetch breakfast burritos for her when she'd come home.
She didn't date in school. She meticulously planned her workouts. The documents folder on her laptop is filled with motivational quotes to print out. Like, it's not that some people have willpower and some don't. It's that some people are ready to change and others are not. Sierra had wanted to follow in her dad's footsteps.
She wanted to kind of lean in the military. I tried to convince her not to go enlisted. She was a terrible test taker, even though she graduated cum laude. She just couldn't take standardized tests. Yeah. So anyway, she got talked to by somebody at San Diego State and tried to go be a police officer.
So instead of the military, she joined the police academy. It didn't surprise anyone in the family. It was on brand for Sierra. The academy was demanding and physical. She showed her family bruises from their wrestling matches.
You have to beat each other up. It's
right.
called Fight for Your Life. So shooting, driving, the academics, I knew she would get through all that.
She blew it away. She did good.
But it's Fight for Your Life, where you're basically, you're go hand-to-hand combat with an instructor. And it's called Fight for Your Life. So if you're ever in a struggle and the guy's going for your gun and you're wrestling each other on the ground, you have to come out the winner.
And you have to show,
or you're dead.
You have to show the other officers at the academy teaching that you have what it takes to do it.
As I'm trying to understand more about who Sierra was, Cheyenne says,
I think a lot of people out there already know about her just from that video. I don't think there's anything that people would need to know more about her, because that video just shows all her character of who she was. An earth angel.
Her family says they didn't see any warning signs for suicide.
You know, she just moved into a new apartment. She was so happy to move in and be on her own and decorating the apartment, getting groceries that weekend. So these weren't traditional signs of someone who was not thinking of the future. She was thinking of the future.
Yeah.
She left there was no note.
2 nights before she died, she was grocery shopping.
The story continues after the break. The San Diego police investigated Sierra's death and closed the case. But for her family, it's still wide open.
For us, for me, it's January 1st. All the time.
Holidays.
It's always January 1st, 2018, because like today, I mean, it's not your fault, but it's always, the time doesn't move on past that date.
In their living room, they put on the DVD slideshow that played at Sierra's funeral. For the first time during my visit to the Estrada's house, it goes quiet. We watch 25 years flick by in minutes. Halloween costumes and a first communion dress and a graduation cap. Sierra grows taller. Blonde highlights appear in her hair. Then it's slicked back into a tight bun. A badge appears on her chest. The photos stop. But her mom thinks her spirit goes on.
She's still doing from beyond, being a good Samaritan and a humanitarian from beyond the grave. Her soul is going through me, telling me, Mom, do this, do that. help this guy.
Julie believes Sierra sends her strangers to help.
She sends them to me because I'm like...
She hears the footsteps of her ghost upstairs.
Because we can hear him walking.
She visits mediums who give her all the answers the police never did.
Maybe her presence is there, but...
She sees signs everywhere.
Something kept pulling me to this area.
In numbers and nature. She shows me a large vase and Ziploc bags full of bird feathers.
Since Sierra's died, the angels have left me feathers.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot.
Larry, who is not sold on angels or ghosts or mediums, offers another explanation for finding feathers.
We walk the dogs.
Julie is undeterred. Maybe, she says, Sierra's spirit is at the table with us right now.
They know everything about us, everything that we're doing. I'm sure Sierra's sitting right here. Thanks for showing up, Sierra.
She believes Sierra is invested in their quest for answers and justice because she doesn't believe Sierra killed herself.
I will tell you flat out to your face and anybody that my daughter did not kill herself. She did not kill herself.
Sierra worked hard to keep her life in order, but no one's life is as simple as they plan.
You don't know what Sierra went through the week before she died. She broke up with Eric.
Next time, on One of Their Own, we look at Sierra's complicated reality with her boyfriend, another San Diego police officer.
She had so much optimism and so much like she was living for the future. But I do know that relationship kind of tore her down.
If you or someone you know have thoughts of suicide or need emotional support, please call or text 988. Help is available 24/7. One of Their Own is produced by me, Katie Hyson, and edited by David Washburn with support from Elizabeth Hames. Mix and sound design by Emily Jankowski.
What you just heard was the first episode of One of Their Own, an extremely strong piece of journalism coming out of our KPBS newsroom. I'm back with Katie Hyson, the host and producer of One of Their Own, and David Washburn, who edited the podcast. Katie, we'll start with you. It's my understanding that One of Their Own received some awards. Can you talk about how the series was received? I mean, it was received well. We can say that pretty confidently.
Yeah, it was a finalist for a national award for best reporting by a so-called young journalist. That's how I found out my youth ends this September, apparently. And it also won and placed for some best podcast awards. Apple Podcasts actually featured it in their top featured slot, which doesn't happen often for a local public media station podcast. And it ended up in the top 100 of all podcasts across all genres. And I think for me, the reason those numbers or those awards feel meaningful is because part of the family's grief and anger is that their daughter's story felt untold. They felt not listened to. And now they're being heard on a very large scale.
And I know that a good amount of reaction comes from tip from our investigations and stories like this. When people message or DM you, what are they saying in reaction to this podcast, Katie?
I've definitely received a lot of messages from former law enforcement officers, not just locally, but across the country, wanting to look at other cases that feel similar to them, some just expressing some of the culture in these institutions that allow things like this to happen. And so it seems to have struck a chord.
Absolutely. Definitely struck a chord. Anything you'd like to add, David, in terms of the impact that One of Their Own has had?
Sure. The reach of this podcast has been beyond our wildest expectations. It's really a big deal for a local podcast to hit the Apple Top 100 list. But as Katie said, the most important impact is the impact it had on the family. They are very grateful that their loved one's story was told in such an accurate and thoughtful manner. And it really is, it's work like this that makes me proud, to be a journalist at KPBS.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you both on air for the way you handled it. I'm not part of Sierra's family, but if she was one of my family members, I'm sure I'd be proud in the way that you showed her grace and accuracy. So thank you both. We'll be back after the break to hear from KPBS's other investigative podcast, Free Jane.
KPBS On Demand is supported by ACLU of San Diego and Imperial Counties. The work of the ACLU is about closing the gap between the America that was promised and the America that is. Learn more at www.aclu-sdic.org.
I'm Lawrence K. Jackson, and this is Best of KPBS Podcast. Our second podcast is Free Jane, a true crime investigation produced by former KPBS reporter and producer Claire Trageser. Jane Dorotik's husband, Bob, was found dead by the side of the road the morning after he went missing. 3 days later, Jane was arrested for his murder. She spent nearly 2 decades in prison. Free Jane tells the story of Jane Dorotik, her trial, and her eventual release. It is a true crime podcast where the flaws in the criminal justice system are exposed. Here's the first episode of Free Jane.
And it was also along this road where Bob's jacket was found. In fact, the area where his jacket was found, and we're coming up on it in a minute here, it's going to be hard for me to know exactly where, but there's we'll find it.
Jane Dorotik is riding in the car with our producer. They're going to the spot where her husband was found dead 24 years ago. Jane had reported her husband missing, and all these years later, it's easy to hear her frustration with the sheriff's detectives.
They didn't even go to the house where the mailbox was. They didn't even go knock on the door and say, "Hey, did you hear anything last night? Did you see anything funny?" I mean, they just didn't bother.
Her husband Bob's body was found in a different place on this winding Valley Center road, not in the same spot as his jacket.
None of it really makes sense. Why would his jacket be in one place? And then, maybe, did we miss it?
Bob was killed the day before Valentine's Day in 2000. And that day was just the beginning of the ruin of Jane's life. She was arrested and convicted for the murder. She spent 20 years in prison and then was released during COVID. Finally, in 2022, Jane was exonerated. We still don't know who the murderer was. To Jane, it's all still vivid memories. She guides us to where Bob's body was found.
We'll have to see. I think we might have missed the spot where... The last time I was here, there was a little sort of stand. Yeah. This is the corner, Woods Valley Road. So if you turn left at Woods Valley Road, it was down that driveway that his body was found.
Just right here?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And you can pull in there. I think it'll be safe. But the gate was not there at the time. See that big black gate?
Mm-hmm.
That was not there. And it was farther down that road and in the brush. Nor was that little wall there. And it was in the brush where his body was found.
Jane's case ended up being a huge deal. Not just for her, but for efforts to change the justice system. Her case exposed weaknesses in the San Diego Sheriff's crime lab, and it shone a spotlight on how junk science was used in courtrooms, and still is used. And that's why Jane is willing to go back to these painful places. Physical places along the side of a country road, and places in her memory. because she thinks the more exposure her case gets, the more people will ask questions about other investigations and other cases. And ultimately, she thinks, more people could be freed after spending time in jail.
So, it's hard to know what really happened and how it all sort of unfolded. But, I think the best speculation is some kind of altercation happened. And somehow something must have started where Bob's jacket was found. And then they put him in a car and brought him here. What all happened, who knows? But it had to be some kind of an altercation and something, and maybe they got scared and said, well, we'll put him in the truck and then we'll figure out what to do. It's just hard to know how it all sort of unfolded.
Every story has a beginning. And Jane's story actually began after college, when she and Bob first met. Jane told producer Claire Tragesser the story. They talked over Zoom, so the audio quality isn't perfect. Claire did buy Jane a special microphone, but Jane couldn't get it to work.
We met in the apartment building. I was working at UCLA. He was working at Lockheed, and he and his friend moved into the apartment above me in Venice Beach. And there were times when I would call and say, geez, there's an emergency at work. I'm going to have to work a double shift now. Could you go down to my apartment and let my dog out? And so Bob and I were friends for 6 months before we ever started dating. And it was a wonderful way to get to know somebody.
They did start dating. Then they got married, had 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. Their family moved around a bit, from Tucson to Mendocino to Morgan Hill, just south of San Jose. And then finally, in 1997, they moved to San Diego. But then things got a little rocky between Bob and Jane.
When we first moved to San Diego, we actually bought a house, but then ran into some difficulties, marital difficulties, and for a brief period of time, felt like maybe we should go separate ways, and actually initially filed for divorce. But after sort of and then put the house up that we had just bought in San Diego, put that up for sale.
The Daratics were middle class, not wealthy, both with decent jobs. Jane was a nurse and Bob was an engineer. But buying and selling that house put a strain on their finances.
Financially, a very foolish move to buy and sell a house in less than a year. Give everything to the realtors, but that's what we did.
Within a year, Jane and Bob decided to reconcile and move back in together.
I said to my husband, look, if we're going to try and make a go of this, maybe we should rent for a little bit and maybe we should really explore.
Jane also wanted to take the opportunity to explore her real passion, horses. Her idea was to rent a house in Valley Center, an unincorporated San Diego County with its winding roads through wide open fields. It was perfect for their goal, to set up a business training horses. She would work with her daughter, Claire, who by that point was in her early 20s.
That's sort of the business that Claire and I were trying to capitalize on, taking in horses, ex-race horses, recycling them to be a good hunter-jumper. And we did quite well at it.
Things were going better. About a year passed and they were happy.
The house was not great, but doable. Had a great barn on it, had 16 acres. I used to consider that area probably the most peaceful environment I had ever seen until Bob was killed there.
But then it all changed overnight. On Sunday, February 13th, Bob went out for a jog, as he often did. He had just run his first marathon with his daughter, Claire.
Bob had, for a long time, he had wanted to complete a marathon. And originally he said he wanted to do it before he was 40. Well, it was later than that. You know, he was in his 50s, but he did complete it, and he ran it with Claire, and he was so proud of that fact and so pleased. And Claire was pleased, too, because she felt like she had already run a couple of marathons, and she encouraged him. And at one point, toward the end of the marathon, he thought he wasn't going to make it, and she stuck with him and said, come on, and encouraged him, and he did finish.
So this run, on that Sunday in the middle of the day, was something like a recovery jog. A slow and easy run people do after marathons. But then it became something else entirely.
Even when he didn't come home at first on Sunday, and it was 4 o'clock and then 5 o'clock, and then that time of year, 5:30, it started to darken. And, you know, I started to worry, but what I was thinking is, gosh, maybe he just went farther and he's slowly walking back because he's overdone it. Or maybe he twisted his ankle. And as I kept sort of bargaining with myself.
Jane decided to drive around and look for him.
And it became, well, maybe he fell off the side of the cliff and he has a broken leg, but, you know, God, we can deal with that. Just let him be okay.
But Bob never came back from his run, and neither did the Jane who existed before that day. All her plans for her family and their new horse business, her identity as a wife, mother, and aspiring entrepreneur, gone. Now she was a widow, and soon would become a suspect. Over the next 2 decades, she would become a convict, a martyr, an advocate, and she would play a key role in exposing fatal flaws in the criminal justice system.
I think about things like, you know, what must have his last few moments have been like. You know, it must have been really scary for him. You know, because Bob was very fit, and he wouldn't back down from a challenge, and could be sometimes angry at people, especially because he was jogging. And I know Claire had said on more than one occasion when they were jogging together, somebody would be driving too fast and, you know, and would kind of yell, joggers, get off the road or something like that. And Bob would be irate about that.
She decided to call the San Diego Sheriff's Department. They came out and started searching for Bob. They met with Jane and then waited around for Claire to come home because she knew her dad's usual running routes. Pay attention. This will be important later. They didn't just talk to Jane at her door. They came into her house and took some of Bob's clothes to train their dogs on his scent. Then they found his jacket lying by the side of the road.
You know, first they came at 3-something in the morning to say, we found this jacket, do you recognize it? And that's sort of when I knew, you know, I had still held out hope that they were going to come and say, yes, we found him and his leg is broken and we're taking him to the hospital, something like that. But then when they brought the jacket, and I had that horrible sinking feeling like, oh, this is just getting worse all the time.
Then, later in the morning of Valentine's Day, a deputy found Bob's body.
Then the first thing they said is they thought he had been hit by a car. And I don't know why they did that, why they told that, but that's what they told me. And they said, don't go to the scene. Which seemed strange, kind of, but everything seemed so strange. It all seemed so unreal at the time. I can remember, you know, when my family came and everybody was gathering around, and I'd kind of walk into the living room and looking at everybody, and we were going to have a discussion about, you know, what the next steps were. And I would have this feeling like, well, wait a minute, someone's missing. And then it would come over me again, it's Bob that's missing, and that's what we're all doing here, you know. It was just sort of unreal.
Over the next 3 days, deputies continued to come in and out of her house. Jane met with them whenever they wanted, answered all of their questions, and never gave it a second thought.
We were all making coffee for the detectives in the house, opening our house, search anywhere, you know, search the grounds. really feeling like they're trying to figure this out on our behalf. They're trying to figure out what happened. And not now, in retrospect, but I can see how they were looking at me. But I didn't sure see it at the time.
The deputies likely saw Jane as the potential killer from the beginning, but Jane didn't know that. Then something happened that made her realize she was a suspect. It started when one of the deputies was standing in Jane's bedroom. The deputy didn't have her shoes on and felt the rug was wet. They decided the rug had recently been cleaned and lifted it up. Court documents say the deputies claim they found blood under the rug. Next time, Jane suddenly finds herself the main suspect. Free Jane is hosted by me, Katie Hyson. It's reported and produced by Claire Tragesser, sound design by AM/FM Music, additional producing by Laura McCaffrey. It was edited by David Washburn and Terrence Shepard, web design by Brendan Tuccinardi, and our news director is Terrence Shepard.
That was the first episode of Free Jane. You can hear the complete series wherever you get your podcast. You've been listening to Best of KPBS Podcast. Each episode brings you extended excerpts from some of KPBS's most compelling podcasts, along with conversations that take you behind the scenes of the journalism and storytelling that make these programs possible. Best of KPBS Podcast is a production of the KPBS Audio Department. This episode was produced by Ben Redlowski. Executive producer and editor is KPBS Director of Audio Programming and Operations Lisa Jane Morissette, with additional editorial support from senior producer Brooke Ruth and Linda Davis, KPBS Digital Fellowship Project Coordinator, and today's guests, reporter-producer Katie Hyson, David Washburn, who is KPBS's Investigations and Digital Fellowship Editor. And of course, I'm Lawrence K. Jackson. Thanks for listening.
KPBS On Demand is supported by Bill Howe Plumbing, Heating and Air Flood and Restoration Services. Family owned and operated for over 46 years, Bill Howe has been serving San Diego homeowners with home services since 1980. Bill Howe's full-service team offers heating and air solutions along with dedicated flood and restoration services and an expert plumbing team. Their trained professionals are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to respond to both routine needs and unexpected emergencies. Bill Howe is committed to providing excellent communication, transparent pricing, and quality workmanship on every job. Appointments can be scheduled by phone, online, or through live chat at their website. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com because we know how.